A lot of things happened over the weekend, as one of the offensive linemen for the Jacksonville Jaguars, Andrew Norwell, was given an ultimatum by the Jaguars that said, take a cut on your contract or we trade you. He hasn't responded as of yet, but he's been one of the best offensive linemen in this league for a long time, and he's been very inexpensive for a lot of these years. So it's very interesting to see him might being traded in the coming days. Some franchise tag news: the Broncos have franchise tagged Justin Simmons. The Panthers have franchise tagged Taylor Morton, their offensive lineman. Obviously, Justin Simmons is the safety for the Denver Broncos. The Lions are expected to franchise tag Kenny Golladay. But for contract news, the Bills have re-signed Micah Hyde to a 2-year deal. Thomas Davis is going to sign a 1-day contract with the Carolina Panthers and then retire. So congratulations on the great career for Thomas Davis. Played in Carolina all those years and played 1 year in Washington. Also 1 year in LA. We're going to stay in the NFC East, as it was reported multiple teams have called the Eagles about possibly trading Zach Ertz. Now, Zach Ertz had not a great year last year. I think a lot of that was because his team he didn't get a contract, and I think a lot of times, I don't think it was because he was old. I think it was because Zach Ertz, when you're like, oh, I gotta get this contract, I gotta get this contract over and over again, it doesn't happen, you take a beating on yourself. And I think that's what happened. I think Zach Ertz will bounce back, but I just think he needs a contract to calm his nerves a little bit. Speaking of staying in the NFC least, if you will, Jeff Bezos potentially might buy the Washington football team. Now, it's not just going to be him, it's going to be a bunch of investors with him. But I think the Washington football team is going to want to sell because all of last offseason, when all the exposés came out about what they were doing behind the scenes, and then the NFL just wrapping up their investigation this offseason, it's going to be very interesting what they decide to do. And I don't think people know how this works. If Snyder sells the team, the owners have to, there has to be 70% of the owners has to agree with him selling the team. Or the NFL can force the Washington football team to suspend Daniel Snyder for years without pay, and pretty much forcing you, hey, if you don't sell, you're gonna get suspended. You're not gonna be able to. You can't go to the games. You won't get paid. And that's a big thing. So it's pretty much a wait and see game. But again, the NFL owner is going to allow Jeff Bezos to walk right into their league. We'll see. Another we'll see moment is the Raiders have released Richie Incognito purely for cap space. So another cap cut. And it's going to be interesting to see what the Raiders come up with and what they tend to do. What are they going to do? Because you now release one of your offensive linemen. You're talking about trading Trent Brown. Are you rebuilding? Or are you doing what Chuck Pagano used to say? We're not rebuilding, we're reloading. we'll see. But if you're a Raiders fan, for their sake, you hope it's a reload and not a rebuild. Speaking of a big offer, the Chicago Bears are quote unquote all in on trying to trade for Russell Wilson. The Russell Wilson trade, if I was Seattle, this is what I take. I take 3 first rounders. But I also would want defensive help. So I'm talking like I'm not taking Eddie Jackson because I already have a good safety group. I take Akeem Hicks and Khalil Mack, and I wouldn't settle pretty much for less. That's what I do for Russell Wilson and see what happens, because I think that's what he's worth. Speaking of if these franchise tags are they worth it and everything, the NFL is considering moving the franchise tag deadline and delaying it because they haven't decided on what the ceiling of the salary cap is going to be this year. We know the floor is 180. We don't know how the ceiling's going to be. If it's 210, $210 million, $220 million, a team like the Cowboys can make $40 million to already the $14 to $18 million range that they are in. So you're now talking, okay, now we can pay franchise tag, we can get more people, we have more resources to work with. And it would help a lot of these teams who are in shortage situations. But it's not going to help this team. It's not going to help the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm going to explain why Jeffrey Lurie, the owner of the Eagles, is wrong in thinking that Jalen Hurts, that they need to draft somebody instead of keeping Jalen Hurts as the starter. Jalen Hurts is a great player. The team around him isn't very good. They're old. The front office hasn't drafted well. They've gotten old players that miss a lot of time. Deshaun Jackson missed, I think, 12 games this year. 11, 12 games this year. Alshon Jeffrey missed a few games. Ertz and Goddard missed a few games. They were banged up everywhere. It's not fully Hurts' fault. Where Lurie is trying to be like, well, it is. Because he should still be able to bring us to the promised land. That's not how that works. Hurts, because if the Eagles haven't decided, they may even still draft a quarterback, maybe like a Mac Jones, a Justin Fields if he falls there. And then I bet you there'll be a lot of people calling and say, hey, you want to trade Jalen Hurts? We'll be listening.